Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, March 25th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Kim Mo-gyun. Before we get started, these are the stories we're following at the top of the hour. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said North Korea fired 2 unidentified projectiles into the East Sea Thursday, marking the North's second missile launch in a week. South Korea reported 430 new COVID-19 cases Thursday, continuing to stay in the 400s. The nation's health authorities will reveal their new social distancing measures Friday. And South Korea's parliament passed the government's 4th supplementary budget bill worth roughly $13.2 billion aimed at financing pandemic-battered small merchants and others. Our top story this morning, the South Korean military has confirmed that North Korea fired as yet 2 unidentified projectiles into the East Sea. The launches happened just a few hours ago. Now, for more, we have our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Ji-yeon on the line for us. Now, Ji-yeon, this sounds like an attempt by the North to get the world's attention.
Sure, you can say that. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says North Korea, as you mentioned, fired 2 unidentified projectiles on Thursday. We'll have to see if they're missiles yet into the East Sea from the northeastern coastal region of Hamgyeongnam-do province. And further information is being analyzed by the militaries of South Korea and the U.S. But my sources in the South Korean military say that the projectiles are actually ballistic missiles, and they were fired this morning. And the last time North Korea fired ballistic missiles was a year ago. If the source's information is confirmed, it means the North has violated UN Security Council resolutions for the first time since President Biden took office. What is certain, though, is that these launches signify that the North is ready to gradually raise tensions with the U.S. 4 days ago, the regime fired 2 cruise missiles into the West Sea, but the U.S. shrugged those off as business-as-usual testing, with President Biden saying nothing much had changed. Ho-gyun?
Yes, Ji-yeon. Now, how did the United States respond to these latest launches?
There's no immediate response, but the international community will be watching to see if these latest launches will affect U.S. policy on North Korea, especially as the Biden administration is completing its comprehensive review on how it will approach Pyongyang over the next 4 years. Reuters had reported if they're confirmed to be ballistic missiles, it would represent a new challenge to President Biden's efforts to engage with Pyongyang. On top of that, a security meeting between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan is slated for next week, and they'll be discussing how to deal with these North Korea-related issues. Back to you, Mo-gyun.
Thank you. That was our Kim Ji-yeon from the Defense Ministry. Now, South Korea's presidential office convened an emergency meeting of the National Security Council this morning after North Korea launched the unidentified projectiles. The meeting started about an hour ago at 9 a.m. The NSC members are expected to discuss how to respond to the launch. We'll have more details on this in our later newscast. South Korean Foreign Minister Chung Eui-yong is set to sit down with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov in the next few minutes to discuss Korean peninsula affairs. Eyes are on whether there will be a message toward North Korea after the meeting. The top diplomats are also expected to discuss regional and global issues at a time when Moscow and Beijing seem to be bolstering ties against the U.S. And also on the agenda will be a possible visit to Seoul by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Lavrov, who is visiting South Korea for the first time in 8 years, will leave Seoul this afternoon after having lunch with Chung. And on the COVID-19 situation here in South Korea, 1 year and 2 months since the country saw its first infection, its total cases reported has broken the 100,000 mark. 430 new cases were confirmed on Thursday, and of them, 419 were local and 11 were from overseas. There were 2 more deaths, raising the death toll to 1,709. And on Wednesday, another 28,000 people received their first dose of the vaccine, bringing the number of inoculated to around 733,000. And considering the COVID-19 situation this week, authorities are set to announce revised social distancing measures on Friday. The supplementary budget to be used for a 4th round of COVID-19 emergency relief has been passed by the National Assembly. For more, we have our Hong Yu, who's on the line for us. So, Yu, it took time for the ruling Democratic Party and the main opposition People Power Party to come up with an agreement on the budget. Now, what are the changes made from the government proposal, rather?
Well, again, the extra budget bill was passed in a plenary session this morning, 21 days after the government had submitted it to the National Assembly. The two rival parties had taken some time in coming to agreeable terms. The amount agreed upon is the same as what the government initially proposed, clocking in at more than $13 billion US. More than $7 billion have been allocated to support those affected by COVID-19, more than $2 billion for employment measures, and more than $3 billion for disease prevention measures, such as the purchase of vaccines. One of the adjustments made from the initial proposal is broader support for farmers who are having a hard time due to the drop in consumption resulting from the pandemic. 460,000 farmers with less than 0.5 hectares of farmland will receive more than $260 each. The amount set aside for helping small business owners who have been hit hard by the pandemic was increased by more than $800 million. For over 1 million small business owners, electricity charges will be reduced by 30 to 50% for 3 months. Businesses that have seen their income drop by more than 60% will get around $2,650 in cash handouts. Same amount of handouts will be given to travel sector businesses, an increase of $880 on what was initially proposed by the government. The ruling Democratic Party and the main opposition People Power Party had agreed to shift the amount set aside for employment measures from the supplementary budget and instead use the main budget. Now, with the extra budget bill passed, around $17.6 billion will be used for the fourth round of COVID-19 emergency relief. Back to you, Morgan.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Now, many countries in Europe, including the Netherlands and France, are stepping up efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19. They say it's important for the public to play its part in those efforts. Our Kim Hyo-san reports.
Many countries across Europe are ramping up restrictions in an effort to stem a fresh wave of COVID-19 infections, with the Netherlands extending its lockdown for another 3 weeks. Explaining that the restrictions will be imposed until April 20th, the Dutch government called on the public to exert vigilance going forward.
I'd like to one more time to call to adhere to the Beijing rules. We have done that before. We managed to push the third wave a bit ahead of us, and we can do that again. I'm convinced that our own behavior remains the fastest way to relaxation of measures.
Despite the lockdown, which includes a nighttime curfew and the closure of many public use facilities like bars and restaurants, Dutch health authorities say there has been a 16% increase in cases this week compared to the previous week. They added that this has led to a surge in fatalities and hospitalizations. The announcement comes amid similar decisions in other European countries such as Norway, Belgium, and Iceland. The French government also said Wednesday that the country is witnessing an accelerated spread, stressing that abiding by the government-imposed restrictions is crucial.
What is at stake is to fully and strongly apply the measures that have been announced in order to give us a chance to not have to take additional measures later.
It added that restrictions could be imposed for more regions that have seen a rapid surge lately. In the U.S., accumulated cases topped 30 million on Wednesday, according to figures compiled by Reuters. It said this means 1 out of every 11 Americans have had the virus. The country, which has the world's most COVID-19 cases, is concerned about the emergence of new variants, eased restrictions, and increased travel. Kim Hyo-san, Arirang News.
The UN Human Rights Council has expressed concern over the use of military force against anti-coup protesters in Myanmar. The council adopted a resolution on Wednesday calling for the military to restore civilian rule. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The UN Human Rights Council on Wednesday voiced its concerns at the disproportionate use of force in Myanmar since the military overthrew the civilian-led government in February's coup. The Council's 47 members adopted a resolution calling on the military to restore civilian rule while pushing for a UN rights office in Myanmar. It added the military should also immediately release the de facto civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi. The resolution was adopted without a vote. The resolution proposed by the EU was criticized by Myanmar, calling it politicized, one-sided, with a lack of impartiality, independence, and credibility. Myanmar's Deputy Foreign Minister Kyaw Mil-hut said elements of the resolution were intrusive and factually incorrect. He took particular issue with a reference to possible action by the International Criminal Court, which he called a threat and a direct challenge to the country's sovereignty. Hundreds of protesters who have been imprisoned in Myanmar have been released in what is being seen as the first gesture by the military to placate the protest movement. According to the state-run TV, 628 protesters were freed. The released appear to be hundreds of students that were detained in early March. According to data compiled by NGOs, more than 260 people have been killed during the nearly 2-month-long protest, with thousands others arrested. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. President Joe Biden will have a virtual summit with EU leaders in a bid to repair ties that soured during the Trump administration. The White House says President Biden accepted an invitation from the European Council to join Thursday's video conference. The talks are aimed at revitalizing relations, cooperating to fight the pandemic and climate change. They'll also discuss diplomatic policies toward China and Russia and the strengthening of their trade and investment relationship. Scientists have a more complete picture of the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy, some 55 million light years away from Earth. It's the first black hole ever to be imaged, showing its magnetic field. The black hole, first spotted on telescope in 2019, is revealed in a fresh image showing what it looks like in polarized light. This is the first time astronomers have been able to measure polarization so close to the edge of a black hole, providing them with more information on how they grow. With Korean content attracting more global viewers than ever, the visual effects used to make these shows stand out are also garnering attention. Our arts and culture correspondent Kim Bo-kyung met with effects specialists from VFX Studio for some insights on how they get the job done.
Lots of Korean TV and film content has enjoyed global popularity of late, helped by the stunning visual effects or so-called VFX used by production teams. Netflix original Sweet Home was one of the most demanding, with a vast array of creatures and effects. Westward, the production company which worked on Sweet Home, says that they put a lot of effort into the pre-production phase, visualizing the shooting plan before the camera started rolling, and made use of a special kind of equipment called N-cam.
N-cam is a piece of equipment that lets the director see the computer graphics while capturing the actor's movements in real time. It even tracks the terrain and takes all this into account.
N-cam is usually only used indoors, but to film a 4-meter-high monster scene, it was used outdoors for the first time while filming Sweet Home, surprising the British N-cam provider company which Netflix consulted for technical support. Space Sweepers, dubbed the first Korean sci-fi blockbuster, was also tough to visualize, as there wasn't any prior work which showed how to portray zero gravity and other aspects of space. Instead, the VFX team had to use real images as a reference.
We referred to photos of space and space stations taken by NASA and also researched how the objects would look when under sunlight in space, when there's no atmosphere, along with what the movements of objects and actors would be like without gravity.
Both studio heads agreed that South Korea's high-quality visual effects were able to flourish thanks to K-content being put under the spotlight. And for the South Korean VFX industry to grow further, having more well-made content is of utmost importance.
Until now, most experienced artists had gone abroad to work on bigger projects in Hollywood. But now that South Korea is coming up with content where artists can showcase their capabilities, we need to set a base which enables them to participate in much more challenging projects domestically.
Domestic VFX industries, too, are aiming high, especially now that more and more Korean content is being made and enjoyed globally. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning. It's going to feel like the end of April with plenty of spring warms. Even regions with sub-zero morning lows will notice much warmer afternoon highs along with wide gaps in temperatures. For a closer look, Daegu, Gwangju, and Jeju will get up to 22 degrees this afternoon. Sunny skies in store with decent air quality during the day, so it's a good day to enjoy pleasant spring conditions today. Meanwhile, eastern regions are under a dry weather advisory with effective humidity below 35%, and experts say when effective humidity drops below 50%, just a spark can turn into a large wildfire. But relief is on the way with nationwide rain in the forecast this weekend, but southern parts of the country will receive heavier showers. With that in mind, here is a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that will do it for us at this hour on Arirang News. We'll be back with more of the day's headlines at noon Korea time, so stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.